It's a rivalry renewed at Neyland Stadium, as bitter as any in college football. Tennessee and Florida square off, Vols and Gators. And we got a roundtable edition of SEC Unfiltered. Two great personalities, two great folks helping us break everything down from both the Florida and Tennessee perspective. In the Florida corner, I feel like we're at a wrestling match. In the Florida corner, Jesse Simmons, beat writer and reporter for Inside the Gators and ESPN Gainesville. And for Tennessee, my good friend Ellie of the Players Lounge, Tennessee. Let's all keep it friendly, play nice here. Let's not be like the boxing match last year we saw at the end of the game in Gainesville. We don't want a repeat of that. Again, Jesse, Ellie, appreciate y'all taking the time. It is a pleasure to be joined by you. I'm really excited to break down both these teams in this game specifically on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here, and I know Ellie's excited as I am, and it's one of those things that it's a game week that you can't pass up, especially right here with the rich history of a rivalry. No matter what the records are in each team, you know, they're going to give each other their best punches, no matter whether it's in Gainesville or Knoxville. You're going to see it every Saturday.
Yeah, well, me and Jesse actually were both at that game last year in the Swamp. What a game. But I think if we're going to talk about anything, I think we got to talk about what Coach Spurrier said today, that Tennessee is beatable because Arkansas beat us by 3. Now, of course, anyone is beatable on any given Saturday in college football. We don't need to look on Broadway in Nashville to know that. But I'll have to say the Arkansas loss was not as bad as it looked. I'm going to have to credit Josh Pate's Meemaw with that one. If nothing is as it seems, then nothing is bad as it seems. So how I kind of see this Tennessee team right now, it's not as bad as it seems. We lost by a few points. A very talented and well-coached Arkansas team. Now, that line of scrimmage had improved each week since week 1. But I think they're a few plays away from just being undefeated. And I'm sorry, but a 3-point loss at the expense of penalties, some bad communication, an SEC road game in an environment that, as we all know, was crazy. But it's not as bad as it seems. I feel like, I don't know, now with Florida, we'll see some response of kind of what it will be, but who knows? That's what practice and preparation is for, all week in Anderson. So
to your point, Ellie, Tennessee a 2-touchdown favorite, if not a little bit more, going into this ball game. I think 15.5 was the last place I saw the spread. But Jesse, I want to go to you really quickly because it's interesting.
Well, spreads are a gamble.
They are indeed. We just saw that in Fayetteville. We just saw it in Fayetteville. Jesse, I want to ask you, Gators coming off a win over UCF, a game that really went under the radar. Speaking of spreads, by the way, Florida was a home dog to UCF. Billy Napier and the Gators find a way, again, get the job done, win that game by double digits. Jesse, give us an idea right now, the mood in regards to the Florida football program. Again, I was there earlier in the season, saw the season opener. Been some disappointments, right? There's been some highs, but there's been some lows, most notably the Miami and the Texas A&M games that Florida has dropped. There's been uncertainty at the quarterback position and how that's working itself out. There's been uncertainty of how long Billy Napier is going to make it. So where does Florida sit right now? Again, obviously, as Ellie pointed out, Steve Spurrier has a lot of confidence. To the Florida Gators have a lot of confidence as well coming off that win over UCF.
I'll start with saying this. All right, when you came to visit me for the Miami game and we had a couple conversations, I was riding about as high on a horse as I could have ever been about Florida, with just the hype around Lagway, the pieces they added in the offseason. I was about as high as I was going to be, and boy, was I ever wrong at that point in time after that night against Miami when Florida got embarrassed at home. The next 4 weeks were very somber and not depressing, but it was depressing. The best thing that could have happened to Billy Napier and this Florida football team was a bye week. If anything that could have happened, they were beat up both in the defensive and offensive side of the ball. We saw Trey Wilson have some issues. Asa Turner, a big senior safety, come over. He was hurt. Slackman in the trenches. Florida was beat up going into the bye week more than they would have admitted. And what I saw in the facility, they needed that bye week. And as a 2-point underdog at home against UCF, a game that got looked over with all the magical things that happened in Tuscaloosa and Fayetteville over the weekend, I think it was a game that not many people expected much out of. And I think I do really honestly truly believe that Napier saw an opportunity and I have not seen how quick this fan base, because I will also preface this. I'm a Florida Gator fan. I grew up a Florida Gator fan. I love my dad played football at FSU, but split house divided. I can keep it a buck when I need to. This fan base is delusional at times. They like to ride very high and ride very low. We went from fire Napier to boo them out of the stadium to fans stayed after the game to cheer him off the field. Like, let's just stick with him.
That's Tennessee for you.
Exactly. That's just the standard of playing in the SEC.
And I love the fan base.
Absolutely.
But there are times at which, they're going to call you out. They're going to ride the highs when it's a little too high. But as soon as you lose, it's riding the lows really low. So I can definitely see what you're coming from there. But
yeah, absolutely. And so in this week after the UCF game, this is the best I've seen Florida play in quite some time. Maybe the best game I've seen them play under Billy Napier in his era here. And I tell you, like, when you asked the vibe in Gainesville, completely turned around. Like I said, that's why I mentioned the Miami game. The vibes are about as close to pre-Miami as they've been up until this point in this season, because it was a complete 180. Like I said, fans had no hope. Sometimes I said I had no hope. But it has complete turned around for the upscale going into this game in Neyland Stadium on the road. It's going to be exciting. I'm a person that doesn't like to ride too high and too low, so we'll get into that. But right now, the vibes are about as good as you can hope for at 3-2 in this season with a gauntlet of a schedule ahead.
So Ellie,
record numbers that are loud. We're still holding teams to under 29 points, and playoff season is hanging by a thread with this game. So is Florida going to come out and somehow score more than 30 points on our defense? Can Florida control our O-line completely and stop the run? Jesse, what are you saying about that? Can they match up the deep ball, downfield drives? Who knows what they're working on? But this week, I see them having something to prove. I wrote in week 1 that there was nothing to prove, and the game was about the Vols and building on the team chemistry. And I think we are in week 7, game 6. Of course, you're going to have players that are getting injured throughout the season. It is a longer college football season, something to expect. But you can say they may have something to prove to the playoff committee and fans. But to me, this game is still all about them as a team. I think that's a look into what I'm writing about for this Game 6 preview on the Players Lounge. I think it's something that a lot of our fans are ready to see. This is a historical matchup. If you think back, Florida has to come into a checkered Neyland Stadium. I don't know how many SEC teams can say they have walked into Neyland Stadium and checkered out. A few teams now, back in the Butch Jones days, back in the rough days of Tennessee, maybe. But even last year, Georgia was able to come in, but Florida coming into an environment, now it's the same as us going into the swamp as in last season, but Florida is no Georgia this year from last year. There are no Georgia, period. I don't think there's any team that can accumulate to what Georgia was last year, let alone coming into Neyland Stadium the way they did, and just absolutely a bye week isn't enough. I don't know how many teams can come into that environment, that crowd, and be able to let alone hear the plays, but execute them well on top of everything.
I will bounce back with it and say this: sound, or whatever you want to call it. Chris, you witnessed it in the swamp. Sound's not a problem for this Florida Gators team. I don't think that's what the true problem is with this offense and defense under Billy Napier. I do think that, we heard all this last year as Florida was an underdog at home. Yes, they were at home. It was a little different. We saw how that played out. Florida handled business how they should have. They've won 17. They're 17-3 in the last 20 meetings. But this is, I will say, it's probably the most lopsided matchup that Florida has played against Tennessee in recent memory. Florida hasn't played a Vols team ranked this high since 2005 when they were ranked 5th. So Florida is the last time they were unranked at Neyland Stadium was 2018, and the Vols were also unranked in that game. So neither of these teams were both in a top 25 standpoint the last time that Florida rolled into Knoxville unranked when they won that game, but they didn't roll in, with high expectations and standards. So I understand what you're saying here about, it's all Tennessee, this, that, and the other, but in the back of your mind, also Bama's looming next week behind you. Not saying that you just forget about the Florida Gators, because we've in the past the Gators have come up and surprised people like we did at home. So I am a true believer in home field advantage is a thing. checkered flag, this, that, whatever. Yeah, I agree. To a very small point. Checkered flag, whatever you want to call it. But
whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it.
I think they still need to stop the run game, though. And they
I agree.
I will say this again. I've been to some venues I've been to some venues this season, and I'm excited to experience Knoxville at what I feel like is probably going to be at its peak. No spoilers, but it's going to be a big time atmosphere, big time game. You know, I think for Florida, that'll be a key, starting fast. You can take the crowd out of it. I've seen it at all these. I saw it in the Swamp week 1. If you go down the field, score up 7-0, it's like they're gone. So, Ellie, you're very confident, but I'm going to ask you, you're probably a lot more confident than some of your comrades in Knoxville because Tennessee just lost
for sure
to Arkansas, and I was there and witnessed it. Ellie, Nico looks pretty average. I'm not going to lie to you. I think he's going to be a heck of a player, but I'm
not necessarily a quarterback, analyst, or coach. But I will say, after the first quarter, I was watching it on TV. I wasn't able to go to the game, but I was watching it on TV, and he did look a little rattled. Now, that's all I'm going to say, because any quarterback that's being put into a position that he's being put into as a freshman, asking to lead a guys that have been around into the program for 4, some 5 now years, there was a little bit of communication off between just him, the receivers, but that's all I'm going to say about it, because, that's fixable. Now, you could see in his emotion walking out to the field, he was not as confident as he has been in years past, as he's been in weeks past, but he will come back. I believe in him wholeheartedly. But the most important thing is I believe in Coach Heupel and our staff. So, I'm going to leave it at that. But I'm a coach's kid, so I know that, they don't want to lose when they're going out there. They're going to do everything in their power to win a football game. But I'm going to also say Heupel had said into his press conference, but, I posted it on my TikTok, and the comment section blew up. It was crazy. The amount of hate and, the opinions were everywhere. But that's what happens when you lose in the SEC. Everybody's going to have an opinion now. But I think, this week we'll see a different Vols team. Point blank period. I think coming off the bye week into Arkansas, the vibes were a little lower. There wasn't as much going on at practice. You could hear it in the press conferences too. It was kind of, we're here, we're going to ride the wave. We're going to kind of, do our job that we've always done. But with that said, that's how I feel about it. These guys are also going to come back for vengeance after last season. If you look at my article that I'm going to write, it hasn't hit yet, y'all, but I'm writing some right now just for my preview with the Players Lounge. My thing is, it's not about who we're playing. It's about us as a team and how we come together. And Saturday, those guys will walk out there. I feel like, I'm going to stick with that. But like I said, you never know, any given Saturday.
Yeah, like I said, we just saw that in Fayetteville. And I agree with you. Tennessee's still a really good team. They may have a road game problem with Josh Heupel, which they got to get figured out. But to your point, they come home in Neyland, night game in Knoxville. I got a question for both of you. I'm going to start with Jesse, and then we'll go to Ellie. You've watched – each side has watched each other to this point. Again, Jesse, starting with you, what have you seen from Tennessee? What are some areas you feel like Florida can have some success, and some areas that concern you? Because obviously, again, this Tennessee team still ranked top 10 in the country.
I'll say this, as growing up as a Florida fan for quite a while, like I said, fan base can be delusional. You want to look away and not admit when teams are good. I will say this Tennessee Volunteers team, when they played Oklahoma, it was the first chance I got to sit down and watch them play. Not that it was at home. I thought they looked like a suited up, very strong team in multiple aspects. That was the first time I saw, dang, we're looking at Ole Miss, Bama, Georgia on our schedule. What about Tennessee for the first time in a long time? Like, let's not get ahead of ourselves here with this whole gauntlet, because Tennessee is one of those teams that, just being friends with Ellie, I've kept in the back of my mind of, okay, let's keep an eye on them. Let's not forget about them. That rushing offense, coming into the season, I didn't think their rushing offense would be as good as it is. I knew it was solid. I thought they were going to be a little bit more of an air raid offense. And boy, have they exploded into a premier rushing attack. And, to kind of go back on that, Florida faced UCF, and they were a number 2 FBS national team, which they played different competition. But in the bye week, you saw Coach Armstrong and the defensive coordinator at Florida. They changed their game plan. They were loading the box on 4th and 1 on the 43. Like, they had 8 men in the box ready to roll. They played much more pressed. They were not playing backed off in zone coverage. They were attacking KJ Jefferson. And so I saw them make that adjustment against a high-powered rushing offense with a quarterback that can run, and the freshman Tennessee quarterback now that they're about to face can easily pull it and run all over you all day. And I think that the Gators, that was a good pre-test to this. I like what I see, but I think the Gators will, if they can play the same defense that they played against UCF, which I know Tennessee on the road against an SEC opponent, bigger, badder boys, up in Tennessee, it's a different type of challenge, but they gave them a really good test that, you might not have seen against UCF. It was a little deeper because those guys know each other very well. Those players know each other very well. There was a little bit more to that game than ESPN showed. And I saw that after the game too, just talking to a few players, that there was a little bit more in that game. And I think that's about as good of a test they were going to need to get off a bye week. And they're rolling that good momentum. And, you've said a lot of it too before I pass it off to Ellie. Who's had more of a hot seat than Billy Napier in this country right now? Nobody. Who needs to win more than Billy Napier in this country right now? Nobody. Who needs it, right? I mean, good or bad, he needs this win. And when you just took a fan base who hated your guts and basically put you on a pitchfork on Twitter, and then the very next week they're wanting to say, okay, maybe we believe in him again. If anybody wants to win as bad as they do, it should be Billy Napier in this team right now. And who has more motivation? I don't think anybody but him going into this game. So I'll pass off to Ellie, but I will say that the rushing attack that the Vols offer is something that I didn't exactly see. But I do think that the passing offense for Florida has only gotten better. And even missing Trey Wilson there, he's questionable to very likely come back against this game on the road, which he'll be a very key piece if he does play. But I've seen a couple other players and transfers step up that could be very dangerous down the field against this Vols secondary.
I mean, yeah, you're pretty spot on there with your response. But, we do have some injuries at the receiver position. So we know some guys may be banged up a little, but we also just know that, I'm not a Florida Gator analyst by any means. I really don't like watching that orange and blue walk out onto the field. I still believe that our orange is superior above alls. But, I just feel like I'm going to stick with I care about my Vols still. So I've seen a lot of different stuff, but I believe in them and this staff. And when we focus on us, we are unbeatable. I feel like coming out the bye week, like I said earlier, we were just a little unfocused and you could hear it. Just in the press conferences, they were keeping the vibes easily. But I'm going to stick with this week. It's about us. It's about our guys. And I do know them and what they're capable of. I know that coming off of a loss especially will keep them motivated. So, when we play our football, we're unbeatable. And I'm going to go with that. Now, Jeremy Crenshaw, watching him, what was he? Raise 8 for week 6 performance, getting to see what he's been able to do on the field. Y'all's running back, y'all's run game. But I'm going to say this, our defense this year, it's a little young. We do got some veterans at the D-line position. However, that Leo position, our linebacker room, what we've done this year, I feel like we're going to match up well with Florida's offense. But I'm going to stick with us going into it. I believe in the Vols. I believe in what we're, able to accomplish. And that's it. That's all I got to say. I feel like our guys speak for themselves enough, but, I don't really care about Florida week. I feel like it's not Florida. It's us.
Chris, I'll jump in for a question for both you guys, which I'm genuinely curious about. First off, you said the Vols are unbeatable. They weren't last week against Arkansas on the road. So I don't know how you feel about them rushing the field, but I don't know. I didn't think that
I was on the field, by the way. I rushed it as
well. Oh, hey.
That's hot.
Keep your fans off. All I'm gonna say is keep
great.
Your fans
Listen,
off.
I couldn't pass up the opportunity to get that content.
Man, you gotta let it rock. But honestly,
I was on the field when they played Rocky Top, by the way.
So. If you go on the field, stay away from the players. That's all I gotta say.
I agree. I thought that was a little.
I just wanted to record the fans. I just wanted to record the fans. Yeah.
That's all I gotta say about that. I feel like rushing fields are okay in some ways. Now it's not my favorite, especially after seeing what Vandy did, taking down their goalposts. Like, could they be
I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Any more like Tennessee? Like, could they try and be any more like us? Anyways, not the point. And they just renovated that stadium. Like, I feel so bad. Y'all just put that goalpost up. Why are y'all tearing?
I think Vandy will. They're fine. I think they're fine.
Okay, I agree.
I think Clark Lee will forgive them.
Going back here, I got a question for you guys too. You know, you said you believe in your team no matter what when they're playing their ball. UCF lost to Colorado the week before they played Florida. And I said, okay, well, there's two things. Did Colorado just give Florida the blueprint on how to beat UCF in a major rushing attack? Or is UCF going to come in here with a fire and be pissed off? And I thought they were going to be pissed off. That's why they were 200 dogs. So I didn't truly believe in Florida with UCF coming in. I thought they were going to be pissed off. Now flip that. We got the Florida Gator fans in Napier just got to watch a potential blueprint on the Volunteers and how to beat them.
Okay, that is fair.
So do you think, question for both of you guys, do you think that they come back home pissed off and is Florida waking up an angry giant at home? Or did Napier just get a blueprint on, all right, here's how we go into Neyland Stadium and beat them and catch some serious momentum?
I'll say just like Bama, Bama wasn't exposed. They were outcoached throughout the game, outplayed. Their mindset going into that game was very unprepared, very unfocused in my opinion. But I feel like, the capability that Bama has is still there. I don't think anything was exposed. Same with us. I feel like we didn't play 4 quarters of penalty-free football. We had a sloppy game. You saw it with the kicker. We were, miscommunicating down the field. The receiver connection was off all game. Now that's minus maybe Dante going down for 50 yards, but that is us, that's an us thing. That's a miscommunication. That's an unfocused mentality. That's not exposing, a weakness. You saw a little bit of tendencies at the quarterback position just with how he handles pressure. But that playbook is not one-sided. There's a lot of little things that caused, our team to lose that game. And it was really just 4 quarters of not, unfocused, and that can be fixed, I feel like. And I think Bama's they're still going to be able to come back because there wasn't too much exposed there. You saw Georgia lost against Bama. Heck, that just gave the entire SEC a blueprint because, Kirby was pulling out stuff all game. So I feel like, we're still in it. I don't think it's really, a blueprint for anybody.
Jesse, to answer your question, I think it's a little bit of both. I think Tennessee definitely is going to come back home, quote unquote, pissed off, wanting to put their best foot forward. And it shouldn't take getting punched in the face by the Hogs to do it, but sometimes it happens. Does it give Florida a little bit of a blueprint? Sure. But once toe meets leather and that first play happens and we start hitting, it's football at that point. It's X's and O's. All those emotions are kind of out of it. I think there's some key matchups in this game that I'm looking at specifically. When I was there, and I know Florida's evolved as a football team, but I question the secondary. I think if Tennessee takes the training wheels off of Nico and actually lets him go win a football game and throw the football down the field, I've seen Florida get exposed downfield. I've seen Florida struggle to cover, elite playmakers on the outside. So I think Tennessee can win in the vertical passing game. I then look at Tennessee's offensive line, though. I just wonder, does Florida have, and, Travis Williams did a great job of scheming up Tennessee. That defense for Arkansas, he's getting every ounce of talent out of them, or milking everything out of that defense and more, because I don't think you look at them and they're like one of the elite defenses in the SEC. But what he's doing with Xavier Sorey at the linebacker position, Landon Jackson up front, Tennessee's offensive line was not good. They just flat out, they were not good in that game. They got bullied on both lines of scrimmage. I was really surprised at Arkansas's offensive line, which Tennessee's defense played a really good game. That front seven, I'll still say, as good as any in college football, but Arkansas's offensive line held their own. They were able to establish a little bit of a running game. You saw late in the game with Braylon Russell, big number 0, drive them down the field and set them up for that final score. So, for Florida offensively, right side of the offensive line, we talked about it a lot. We've talked about it in multiple games. It's given them a lot of issues. Tennessee is a football team where this thing could go sideways in a hurry if Florida cannot hold their own at the point of attack, right? I think they've got some weapons on the outside. So there's matchups within this game that I think are really, really interesting. But I do think I'll say this, Tennessee's going to come home ready to play their best football. At the same time, to your point, Jesse, I do think there were some areas where all of a sudden we're like, maybe Tennessee is a little bit more vulnerable here than we expect. And I'm really curious how Nico Iamaleava bounces back. And again, do they kind of – is it whatever?
Well, I was going to wait till someone else said it because I did not want to say it.
I love
Iamaleava. No, it's no.
I just figured out Tua Tagovailoa, let alone
which part of it did I mispronounce?
The last part. It's Iamaleava instead of Eva.
Oh,
did I say even? Iamaleava.
Anyway,
Iamaleava. Yeah. Anyways, I expect Nico to bounce back. So I want to change it to this really quickly. This Tennessee-Florida, Florida-Tennessee rivalry is one of the best in college football. I'll start with Ellie, and then we can go to Jesse. Ellie, everything said about this game. Florida's won 17 of the last 20.
All right.
What is it? What is it? And we don't have to bring up that Tennessee hasn't won in the Swamp since 2003. But in your mind, you're as close to that program as any. You talk to people in the building. What is it about this Florida game that is so difficult for Tennessee? Because they've had the better team more often than just 3 times in the last 20 years. And there's something about this game that, like Steve Spurrier said, like there should be great belief and confidence in that Florida football program going this game. What is it about this game?
I honestly wish I could tell you because, going into the Swamp last year, I was really confident. Our guys looked great all week in practice. Our fan base showed out. They all traveled down. So, going into it, first time in the Swamp too, by the way, let me tell you, that visiting side, how close it is to those benches. I mean, we had a streaker going there at the end. There was everything. Nothing on my bingo card was correct.
At the end too. My goodness.
Yeah, nothing at all on my bingo card. But you're right. This is a traditional game in college football, and it's a huge factor. So, I mean, it's up in the air. I feel like any given Saturday, I've said it 3 times now, but it's the truth. The team that goes in with the best mindset and is most prepared at the end of the day is going to come out with the W, and they're going to win. I feel like all week, maybe that's it. Maybe it truly is a mindset and a mental toughness. And I feel like if you're players, you'll see it Saturday. Running out of the tunnel, I think that's that first snap. You'll be able to see which team mentally prepared all week leading up to it and is going to stay mentally prepared for 60 minutes.
So, Jesse, on the flip side, I ask you the same question, but I kind of position it a little bit differently. How much confidence does Florida have? I mean, you got to feel like at some point, like, hey, listen, we're a 15.5-point underdog, but we own these guys. Like, we beat them every year. So I know it's different in Knoxville, obviously. The 3 losses have been in Knoxville. They've been kind of recently. But, I mean, again, what do you think it is about this game that Florida has had so much success? And it feels like no matter what the odds are, I mean, I feel like Florida rolls into this one every year feeling like, hey, we beat them so many. At some point, you just start believing like we're supposed to win this game.
I'll tell you this, whether you want to admit it or not, Florida has been Tennessee's big brother in the SEC for quite some time now. They still lead the all-time series dating back to the Peyton Manning days. My goodness, Florida even owned him, and what a great quarterback he turned out to be. It's one of those things that Florida rolling into this game with the rest of this gauntlet schedule they have, there should be no more reason than now to want to win. And I'm not going to – I know it's a down year for Florida. We can say it's a down year for Florida. It's still a lot of ball left to play. But Florida is at a point where it's a week to week with this team. And I've said that too, week to week, 1 through 4. Even now, you didn't know what you were going to get every week with this team. We didn't know what the defense was going to roll out. We didn't know if the offense is going to roll out. But what I saw last week gives me hope and gives me faith that, like I said earlier, Billy Napier, if anybody wants to win right now and needs to win more, gosh, it's Napier. It's Napier and the Florida Gators. And they're unranked. They have nothing to lose. What's more dangerous than a dog that is back against the wall and has nothing to lose? Nothing. Florida's not a dog, but you'll feel that chomp, I feel like, in Neyland Stadium on Saturday night. And I tell you what, it's just one of those things that this rivalry means more. It's the SEC. It means more. But it really is true. And I think that, the Tennessee fan base and the Gator fan base, just having friends back and forth, they are similar fans. They really, truly do care about their football. They're fans that will come out to the 80, 90, and 100,000s and pack their stadium, whether they're winning or losing. And they're a team that if your coach sucks, they'll let them know. If their coach is great, they'll let them know. And it's two fan bases that I think are what give this series and rivalry an edge. And this fan base is what gives Florida the belief that we don't care what we're ranked. If we can go spoil Tennessee's season, let's do it. Let's do it. You know, and I don't see why not. So they lead this all-time series. They've won 3 times in 20 meetings. Side story, I kept thinking about me and Ellie had a very unique experience in Omaha, Nebraska for the World Series. I got to meet Peyton Manning, so that's why I had to throw his name in here.
I knew. That's why I started laughing because I was like,
"You knew this story was going to come up." Yep. Yeah, so Ellie has talked to Peyton Manning on the Players Lounge and has met him a few times before. I had never met Peyton Manning in my life, and so we're sitting there talking, get a picture, and I get up, and the only thing that can come out of my mouth, I said, "Hey, Coach, thanks. Go Gators." Shake his hand, and I pat him on the inner thigh. He is sitting in the chairs behind the dugout in Omaha, and I pat him on the inner thigh and say, "Hey, Coach, go Gators." And he goes, "This went from." Yeah.
I mean, it was just the funniest.
And he goes, real funny. Thanks.
I don't know him.
And that's how I knew. If that's going to summarize this week's game, going into
I don't know this guy. I'm sorry. Like, my apologies. Please don't let us not film in your private room anymore. But yeah, I have no clue who this guy is. This random kid I asked to take a photo. Like, gosh, my bad.
I cannot believe those words came out of my mouth. But that response from Peyton right there, when he goes, very funny, nice, and looks down and looks away from me, that summarizes this week. That no matter how high of a saddle Tennessee's riding on, they know that Florida is their big brother in the SEC, and they have a chance no matter what they're ranked, no matter where, anytime, any place. The Florida Gators have more than a reason right now going into this week's match.
Okay, Jesse, and I'm going to give you back Payne's face, and that's my final response.
That's fine.
That's how I feel like this week's going to go.
That's fine.
All right, so Ellie, I'm going to start with you. I got a question for both of you. I got a question for both of you, really simple. Key or keys to victory? Ellie, we'll start with you for Tennessee. I know you've kind of talked about it a lot and hinted at it, but is there one specific key or keys to victory for the Vols to bounce back and get the win at Neyland?
Defense and keeping them under 30. Those two things. I feel like I'm a defensive girl. I have been my whole life. I feel like if we're able to stop Florida's run game, if we're able to stop the downfield passes and them scoring, the red zone is going to be back and forth. But if we can keep them under 30 points, that's the main key.
Jesse, same question for you. Key or keys for Florida to go in there and pull the upset and make it 18 of 21 against Tennessee?
I'm a believer of in the trenches, man. That's where you win football games. I'll tell you what, SEC, they thrive off the trenches. I mean, it's so easy to fall into the flashing lights of deep throws and the confident arm of DJ Lagway, and Mertz is starting to show flashes of that as well. I mean, Tennessee's got a freshman quarterback that is truly talented, but I think it's a trenches game. You said earlier how Tennessee's offense is going to be their vertical pass game. The secondary for Florida has gotten better this year. They've got, whether you want to admit it or not, they've gotten better this year in multiple aspects. Jason Marshall has one of the highest one-on-one ratings in defensive coverage in the country. And Asa Turner, if we can get him back, will be a huge piece. But I think the problem is that our defense, I called our defense jello at one point 2 weeks ago. I said you could walk right through them like an open door and they couldn't cover anything. So yeah, a quarterback's going to have success if he gets 6 to 7 seconds in the pocket to throw and someone gets open. But on the defensive side, if they can keep bringing that pressure, like I said, loading the box on 3rd down, 4th down to apply pressure, how that should be in an SEC team with a team that hopes to compete for a national championship in the next year or 2 or 2 or 3 years with DJ escalating his game. I think this game's going to be one of the trenches that on just the defensive side of the ball from the pass rush we have and then in the rushing attack that we try to, combat. I think just as much, like you said, the right side of the ball on the offensive line is going to be something that I look to immensely. If you don't give Graham Mertz, Graham Mertz is a great check down passer and he thrives off the 5 to 10 yard pass. We know that. I have said it so many times, just let him be confident, let him throw the ball down the field. But I have started to realize that's just not him as a quarterback. He really is the guy that is the fundamental, get it out, be quick with it. And then you bring in DJ and he's the guy that he's the wild card of what's going to happen. So, and like I said, the Vols are still going to get both those quarterbacks. They're going to see both of them roll out on Saturday night. But I think it's going to be, can you give Mertz enough time in the pocket to throw? And on the flip side of that, can you pressure Nico? And I'm not even going to try to say his last name. Can you pressure Nico and try to get him to get the ball out quick? Because I do trust our defensive secondary to be able to load the box the way and to be able to defend the way like they played against UCF and a couple other teams, especially like Mississippi State. They're a bottom feeder, but I like to see them improve, and it's going to be all about effort at the end of the day between the trenches.
Jesse, since I know you can't say our quarterback's name, I'm just going to have you say one word for me.
No, it's all right.
Balls. Go ahead and say balls for me.
Trust me, Jesse, that they will make your they will let you know in the comment. It is Vols, not Vols. I had to learn that the hard way.
Oh, you think I said it wrong?
Like A-W.
It's called Go Gator, actually, not Vols. Hey, at least I said Knoxville, right? I'm from Florida, and I spent enough time playing baseball in North Carolina that I know Knoxville instead of Knoxville. I learned that the hard way.
Well, see, my favorite part of this whole rivalry weekend, I think, is eating all the gator bites, the tail, like everything. I've got to say. But see, we've got a big tailgate with the Legends of Tennessee. We've got all of the old Jabari Davis, who's being honored actually at this game, rightfully so. He ran it all the way back in the swamp. He's known as the Gator Killer. I think I actually have a shirt. Why did I put that up on the wall? But yeah,
not relevant. That's why you forgot it. It's okay.
Right. Well, hey. All right.
All right. It's all right.
I'm gonna stick on my high horse of you not being able to say our quarterback's name and leave it at that, or balls, and just leave it at that.
Ellie, I'm sure you've noticed at this point, everybody I talk to every week when it comes to Tennessee, none of them know how to say Nico's last name. So I would say that's a burn, but nobody. I heard my buddies at Arkansas. They didn't know. They didn't know, and we're in week 6. Going into week 7.
All I know is there's this viral TikTok of this little girl who cannot say any other word properly but our quarterback's name. So you know what? I feel like if the 6-year-old little girl can say it, anybody should learn it. It's a great TikTok if you haven't seen it.
I'm going to ask you both a question. Are you comfortable if I ask you to make a prediction right here, right now? Would you be willing to do so?
I don't do predictions until Friday.
Well, I'm going to pass it. I'll pass it, Ellie, to you, and then Jesse. I'm gonna take. Do what?
It's only Tuesday.
I understand, but I wait for Thursday. Fair enough. But I'm going to. So we've already at SEC Unfiltered dropped our Tennessee Florida preview predictions. I was not on that preview, so since this is my show, I'm going to take an opportunity in the next 30 seconds or so to give you my Tennessee Florida prediction. Again, the official game pick will drop on Wednesday, but I haven't been able to go into detail, give a score prediction, what have you. Love this rivalry, love this game every single year. It's a game that if I wish I could be in 2 different places, I'll be in Baton Rouge this weekend. There's a part of me that wishes I could be in Knoxville, be at Neyland Stadium to take in what's going to be one of the best environments in the country. Seeing Tennessee in person last week, and I was a believer in the Vols going in, and I still am. Same way with Alabama. Ellie, I think you make a great point. Didn't necessarily get exposed like maybe a Missouri did, where I think it could be a long-term lingering issue. But Tennessee, like many others in college football right now, they have flaws. They're a bit imperfect. I need to see the offensive line take a step forward. I need to see Josh Heupel take the training wheels off of Nico. I need to see that. Let him throw the football down the field. Let him get outside the pocket and use his athleticism. I didn't see enough of it against an Arkansas defense that, with Travis Williams, is playing really, really well, but was gettable. There were some deep shots missed as well by Nico. He's got to connect on those in these big-time SEC games. We know it's in there, though. I will say this. I'm keeping my expectations realistic moving forward, Nico, because any team that he's played with a pulse, he has been very average. Let's call it for what it is. That being said, the running game of Tennessee and Dylan Sampson, I question if Florida is going to be able to consistently stop that. On the other side, my concerns of Florida lie, as Jesse was saying, on the right side of the offensive line, and I'm still a believer in Tennessee's front 7. They weren't the problem last week in Fayetteville. It was the offense. I think in Florida, and it sounds like, Jesse, you said Trey Wilson, good shot, he's back. I know they've got other guys, Shamir DK, Elijah Badger. There's another one that I'm forgetting. Who's the other kid? Aiden Mizell, another big-time weapon for them. Arliss Boardingham at tight end. I think this is a back-and-forth close game. I would put both of y'all's money on Florida covering the 15.5. I don't think Tennessee is going to run away with this one and blow Florida out. However, I do think it is line of scrimmage that is the difference. I feel better about Tennessee in that spot right now, so I'm going to go with the Vols 27-20 to beat Florida. But I do think this is a game that comes down to the wire. And to Jesse's point, and we've seen it in college football, there is nothing more dangerous than a pit bull backed in a corner who's got nothing to lose. I think that's Florida and Billy Napier right now. The thing I like about Florida too, this Florida football team, people want to make up narratives about, you know, it's a mess in Gainesville. This team believes in Napier, that he has not lost the locker room, even though maybe he's lost a lot of Florida fans. So that being said, though, I do think Tennessee will bounce back the right way, but I think it's a game that comes down to the wire, but Tennessee gets the win over Florida. I feel like this is a rivalry game, and I could be wrong. It feels like this game is meant to be close. It's just something about this game. There's so much emotion and so much mental warfare going on, but I do think Tennessee gets the win. So I just wanted to put that out there. Ellie, I do think the Vols bounce back. Jesse, I do think Florida makes it a good competitive game. Nothing would shock me here, though. I can't tell you how badly I'm leaning towards maybe we see more craziness in college football. But night game, Neyland, like you mentioned, Ellie, I just – that's going to be a lot to overcome. And I think Tennessee at home is going to play a lot better than they did last week.
I hope so.
So
I'm not going to give my prediction just yet.
That's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to throw mine out there. So Jesse, if you want to give a pick, you can. But I mean, I just wanted to put mine out there. That's it.
I'm a big believer as well. And on Ellie's point that I wait till Fridays and I don't give predictions out very often. But you know, not just because of that, but like I said earlier on the show, Florida is a week-to-week team. There's times that I've ridden very high on them, and I've ate my words. There's a time that I've ridden
volatile,
very low on them.
Jesse. They're volatile.
Yes, and there are very many times that I've rode very low and been like, wow, I should have believed in the whole time. So, you know, if you either keep it from a fan perspective or a strict statistical and reporting perspective, you got to be able to just know. And I think it's going to come down to, does Tennessee have enough time in the pocket to throw and do whatever they want? Is Florida actually going to bring pressure, or is it going to get out of hand quick? Because I think it's more of an effort thing. And you're right, to your point, this team, I've seen it in the facility. This team does truly still believe in Napier, and you can tell when the team gives up and is done. This team has not given up yet. So the Gators haven't given up. I think what Tennessee brings to the table right now, I think they are if not championship title contending team this year. I mean, they're ranked top 10 in the country for a reason. So you know, you can't hate on the Vols for too long. They bring the very things to the table that you cannot deny. So I think it's going to be in the trenches. It's going to be a game of can you give pressure when needed, and the Gators are just going to have to fight through it. So I don't think sound's going to be a problem. I'm not going to give a scoring prediction, but I do think Florida covers. I do think it's going to be very close. I think it could easily come down to a field goal like we've seen many times in the past between Florida and Tennessee, where it comes down to who has the ball last and who's left on it. So we shall see. And I'll just leave it at that for now.
All right, since nobody will give me a score prediction on a lighter note in closing, which orange is superior, Florida's or Tennessee's?
Oh my gosh, I think that's the easiest thing ever. Tennessee's, I don't know how you could ever. I mean, first off, we're top 8, but we're number 1.
Don't say top 8, say top 10.
Number 1 in orange and top 8. So I really don't think there's any questions on who has the better orange. But Chris, thank you so much for letting us come on here and battle out this rivalry. But no, thanks for always collaborating with the Players Lounge. And you can check out the game preview coming out this week on the Players Lounge. Jesse, best of luck. That's all I got. Best of luck.
I will say Tennessee orange, if you squint enough, it looks like yellow, and Florida's rock more blue. Florida rocks more blue. So blue is our color. I wouldn't say orange is our exact color anyway. So we'll let you guys have your oranges yellow. But the blue and Gators is what they rock. Saturday, so I can rock it. But yes, shout out to go check out the Players Lounge. Elliot is killing it over in Knoxville, and ESPN Gainesville is up and coming, and we're growing much more in SEC Unfiltered. You know, Chris, you've been a great partner with us as well, and not only promoting everyone else, but covering the entire SEC country. And Inside the Gators will be up to date with game-to-game play-by-play updates on Twitter. So make sure you stay there for all you Gator fans and even the Vols fans that, you know, get interested enough to want to come check us out too. So.
Yeah, guys, make sure, again, Ellie to Jesse, thank you all so much for taking the time. Make sure you check out the Players Lounge, Tennessee, and Inside the Gators and ESPN Gainesville for everything you need to know this weekend as we count down the days and seconds to kick off at Neyland Stadium as the Gators and Vols renew the rivalry for the latest chapter. For Ellie and Jesse, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. We will catch you on the other side.
Good luck.